So, my name is Konstantinos Davlos, and I am in charge of financial reporting on Sky TV. And I have with me on this panel Mr. Dimitris Andriopoulos, CEO of Demand, Mr. Nikos Kounzos, Managing Director of the Clement Group, Mr. Panos Vlachos, President of Anatolia College, and online with us, Mr. Julian Lipscomb from Bennett's, who is the Director of Bennett's Associates. Mr. Julian Lipscomb is available online, but nevertheless, I don't know if he can hear the translation into English, and therefore I would like to urge our fellow panelists maybe to make their comments in English. Otherwise, we shall continue the discussion in Greek. First of all, I would like to thank, on behalf of the organizers, the participants in the panel for their patience and understanding with regard to the change in the agenda since the mayor had to leave earlier. First of all, also, I would like to begin by saying that I'm sure you all know Mr. Andriopoulos on Demand, which is a company, a developer that is undertaking major projects in Greece. The Tower of Piraeus, I think, is the most recent and most characteristic such project, which was inaugurated in the framework of a great celebration for the city. Mignon, another project that is going to change the Athens city center. Mr. Kounzos here representing Clement Group, which is a company that does not only manufacture elevators, but also has systems for parking areas, also for escalators and moving corridors. And Mr. Vlachos, who is be the voice of the citizens and how things could change for the city for them. The mayor previously spoke about the various problems that these cities are facing and the mentality that is still a problem with regard to the growth of cities. So I'm sure that we could also discuss things as parking and other problems affecting our daily life. So although I have various questions prepared for this discussion, I think that it would be good to start with a few general remarks from the panelists. So, Ms. Andriopoulos, we have already heard various remarks made by the organizers and the previous speakers regarding the way we can improve our quality of life, sustainability, mobility, open spaces in the city, and the use of AI. Could you please make some initial remarks regarding these issues in the general framework of this meeting? Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. This is an extraordinary large project, and it's impossible to speak about them all, of course. Yes, I know it's a conference that has touched upon all these issues. Representing Demand here, I would like to say that we strongly believe in Thessaloniki. It is a city steeped in history, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman history. And the fact that these empires did not choose this city is not a random fact. During the Ottoman period, actually, I read that Thessaloniki was considered the most modern and up-to-date city of the Ottoman Empire. So it's not by luck that we are investing greatly in Thessaloniki nowadays, because we strongly believe in the city and its future. Secondly, the global observation shows that city living is becoming harder for citizens, and there is a variety of reasons for this, which means that Thessaloniki, Athens, and any Greek city is not an exception. So in my statements, I shall try also to include various of the comments made here today. Thirdly, Mrs. Thakouris mentioned that funding is finite, And of course, this is the result of policies of many years. This morning, I read in Global News that Ireland has such a high level of net profit that it doesn't really know what to do with it. And I'm being literal in my remark. Ireland has such a high level of net income, 40 million only from the multinationals that have settled there and have to pay income tax on their activities. Right now, it is building the most expensive pediatric hospital on the planet, which means that Ireland has exactly the opposite problem to us due to a policy that has been implemented not in the last 100 years, but a policy that began in 2002. And right now, it can offer Irish people who have quite a similar mentality to us and who are living in a country the size of Greece, more or less. Of course, they are closer to the US, and that does give them an advantage. But they have been dealing with a problem recently that is exactly opposite to what we are facing. Our question is whether we do have the money for such major infrastructure or not. Mr. Andrade spoke about Bilbao, for example. As he very rightly said, Bilbao did not change only because of the existence of the Guggenheim Museum, but because the central government, in order to reduce the problem with the Basques, after the 70s and when the steel industry closed, they decided to make heavy infrastructure in investments, and Guggenheim came as a brand that would change the profile of the city. Therefore, Thessaloniki now, with the metro, which may have taken 40 years to be built, well, it took 50 years for the roads in Patras to be manufactured. But now Metro is opening up with 18 stations. The flyover is being constructed. Pier 6, which is only a minor step for the port. We also need to make the port deeper, etc., and much more. All this that the mayor mentioned is large-scale infrastructure based on which other investments can be made that can change the city. And to conclude with my initial comments, I believe that when we look at cities in the modern world today, in addition to what the 12 trends shown to us by the gentleman from Portugal and another 20 minor facts, usually citizens, authorities, and everyone look at two things when evaluating a city. First, mobility, whatever that entails. And secondly, how public open spaces can be increased in number, more green areas, more parks, more open spaces, and even more importantly, how these open public spaces can be connected to one another. So, based on this, I think then we can further specify our discussion as required. Okay, I have questions already, but I'm not going to ask them yet. Let me give the floor first to Mr. Kukunjos. You could also make some initial remarks if you like, but what I was thinking of asking you has to do with AI and how it can provide added value to the city and its development. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation and also for giving me the opportunity to sit with such distinguished speakers. Up to now, in my opinion, AI has not really made any changes to the life of citizens. We hear a lot about it. We participate in conferences. We see how things are going to change, and everything seems fascinating, but nothing is visible yet. Well, we have the driverless metro. Isn't that AI? On the other hand, I'm talking about citizens in Thessaloniki, of course, because you're talking about the citizens' daily life. And touching upon what Mr. Andriopoulos said, Thessaloniki and all cities need much more green areas, as was mentioned. And if AI was going to look into this, that would be important. But we haven't seen anything done yet. We may see these things in the future. Things are being done in San Francisco. For example, we have driverless taxis and vehicles. The first autonomous vehicle without AI, by the way, are elevators, pressing a button, taking you to the 8th floor. Yes, there used to be people operating elevators as well when they started being used in 1870 in the New York. How can the AI work on something more specifically? Because we work with regard to accessibility of people to buildings. Well, AI can help in reducing energy spending and easier access. And what companies need to do, and what we have done for a while, because a year ago we only worked with ChatGPT, and now we are creating groups and have a more in-depth approach. We have an initiative now that has AI at the background. Tall buildings have problems, for example, with people having to wait long in order for the elevators to take them to the right floor, where using software, we are now grouping people who want to go to the 20th, 22nd floor or whatever, and we direct them to elevator 3 or 4 accordingly. And others who want to go lower down to the 10th or 12th floor use a different elevator. So this software finds the optimal solution in order to make fewer journeys empty. We could say that an elevator is like a plane. It spends the same energy. If a plane goes somewhere empty, it will use up the same amount of energy. The same with the elevator too. So through this software, we have fewer journeys, less waiting, and people get there faster. This is a DCS, a destination control system. So small things such as these can improve all operations. The elevator is part of a building's infrastructure. However, since we are the manufacturers of elevators, that they are the most important part of a building. Just imagine New York without elevators, for example. It would be a flat city of buildings that were 2 or 3 stories. An elevator is the heart of a building, which needs to be operating constantly at a low energy cost. A part of AI that other sectors have been using earlier than us, and we, the elevator manufacturers, get from them some ready-made algorithms and formulas that we use to our benefit. Also, everything nowadays is connected to the grid. All appliances do so, and we have created a database now that makes elevators smarter by, for example, predicting when a part of an elevator may break down so that the maintenance is done beforehand. In this way, the downtime of the elevator is reduced and there is less cost. Expenses are reduced. That is with regard to AI. What will come in the future? Well, it is hard to predict at a policy level. We heard the brilliant presentation previously. I assume that in the future we will have autonomous vehicles cleaning the city, helping citizens do their jobs more easily, and maybe small bots that citizens can use in order to do their work at a lower cost and faster. And we also need to be prepared in order to introduce technology throughout a building's lifetime.
I would like to see whether we have the connection.
Δεν ξέρω αν έχουμε την σύνδεση με τον κύριο Λίπσκομ. Είστε μαζί μας? Καλημέρα σας, με ακούτε? Ναι. Εσείς? Ναι, δυστυχώς δεν ξέρω αν έχετε καταλάβει τι συζητούμε. Όχι, η αλήθεια είναι έχετε ακούσει την διερμηνία, οπότε ακολούθησα τη συζήτηση. Ε, τότε λοιπόν, θα ήθελα να σας ρωτήσω το εξής. Να μας δώσετε δηλαδή κάποιες πληροφορίες για το πώς μπορούμε να βοηθήσουμε τις πόλεις να προχωρήσουν μπροστά προς το μέλλον. Και να ρωτήσω κάτι άλλο πρώτα. Οι πόλεις της Ελλάδος τις τελευταίες δεκαετίες έχουν εξελιχθεί μέσω του διάσημου συστήματος της αντιπαροχής. Δηλαδή, τι σημαίνει αυτό? Είναι μια ελληνική λέξη που σημαίνει ότι είχαμε κάποιον Έλληνα ο οποίος έδινε ένα οικόπεδο σε έναν εργολάβο. Ο εργολάβος έχτιζε μια οικοδομή και έδινε τη μισή οικοδομή στον ιδιοκτήτη του οικοπαίδου και κρατούσε την άλλη μισή ως αμοιβή. Ως αποτέλεσμα αυτού του συστήματος όμως καταλήξαμε να έχουμε στενούς δρόμους, μειωμένο χώρο, λιγότερο πράσινο, τουλάχιστον στην πόλη από την οποία προέρχομαι εγώ. Πριν από λίγα λεπτά άκουσα τον Δήμαρχο της Θεσσαλονίκης να λέει ότι θα πρέπει να διπλασιάσουμε το πράσινο στην πόλη και αντί να έχουμε 40.000 δέντρα να έχουμε 100.000. Πώς όμως είναι εφικτό να γίνει κάτι τέτοιο σε μια πόλη που ήδη υπάρχει? Έχει τα κτίρια της, στενούς δρόμους, δεν έχει πεζοδρόμια, δεν υπάρχουν πολλά πάρκα. Πώς μπορούμε να το κάνουμε τώρα? Εσείς το καταφέρατε αυτό στο Μάντσεστερ, βέβαια σε μια μεγάλη περίοδο χρονική. Όμως πόσο καιρό θα χρειαστεί για να είναι επιτυχημένο ένα τέτοιο εγχείρημα? Λοιπόν, πρώτα απ' όλα ευχαριστώ για την πρόσκληση, ευχαριστώ πολύ το επιμελητήριο. Πολύ συχνά επισκέπτομαι την Ελλάδα, την αγαπώ. Μάλιστα είναι η ευρωπαϊκή χώρα την οποία έχει επισκεφτεί περισσότερο και λόγω προσωπικής προτίμησης και μέσω δουλειάς, δουλεύοντας με τον Πάνο και τον Δημήτρη. Κατανοώ λοιπόν κάποιες από τις προκλήσεις που σχετίζονται με όσα αναφέρατε και θα ήθελα ίσως να μοιραστώ και κάποιες σκέψεις σε σχέση με τη Θεσσαλονίκη. Βέβαια αυτό είναι επικίνδυνο γιατί εσείς την ξέρετε πολύ καλύτερα από μένα. Όμως, ίσως κάνοντας αυτά τα σχόλια θα μπορούσα να σας δώσω και κάποια παραδείγματα από έργα που έχουμε κάνει στο Μάντσεστερ και παραδείγματα για το πώς μπορούν να γίνουν αυτές οι αλλαγές. Επίσης, συνεργαζόμαστε και με τον Πάνο στο Πανεπιστήμιο Ανατόλια και ίσως μέσω αυτού του μικρόκοσμου μπορούμε να βρούμε και κάποιες λύσεις για όλη την πόλη. Είναι μια υπέροχη πόλη, λοιπόν, η Θεσσαλονίκη, την έχω επισκεφτεί πολλές φορές. Η γεωγραφία της θα έλεγα ότι είναι και φίλος και εχθρός της πόλης μερικές φορές. Ο τρόπος που τα βουνά περικλείουν την πόλη, έχουν φτιάξει αυτό το έντονο ανάγλυφο της πόλης. Δεν είναι δηλαδή μια άμορφη εκτεταμένη πόλη. Όμως από την άλλη έτσι έχουμε περισσότερη ίσως ζέστη και υπάρχει και το κυκλοφοριακό βέβαια που είναι ένα από τα ζητήματα που ανέφερε και ο Δημήτρης όσον αφορά τα θέματα κινητικότητας στην πόλη. Ξέρω βέβαια ότι το flyover και το μετρό θα βοηθήσουν με αυτό το πρόβλημα, όμως υπάρχουν και άλλες προκλήσεις. Γι' αυτό διότι υπάρχει αυτό το εξαιρετικό αστικό υπόβαθρο, υπάρχουν αυτές οι γωνιές αρχαιολογίας, θα λέγαμε, και αρχαιότητες σε πολλές περιοχές της Θεσσαλονίκης, κάτι που μου αρέσει πολύ, και υπέροχοι χώροι όπως η Αριστοτέλους, η πλατεία που ενώνει τον βορρά με τον νότο, το πράσινο, τις αρχαιότητες, τους ανθρώπους και τη θάλασσα. Όμως, από Ανατολή προς τη Δύση έχουμε πολλούς δρόμους στη Θεσσαλονίκη που την κόβουν σε κομμάτια. Υπάρχει λοιπόν κάτι που μπορεί να γίνει γι' αυτό? Υπάρχουν κάποιες τολμηρές ίσως αποφάσεις που μπορούν να ληφθούν για να αλλάξει κάτι, για να πεζοδρομήσουμε για παράδειγμα την παραλία, για να έχουμε την βόλτα της Θεσσαλονίκης, να έχουμε περισσότερο πράσινο και άλλες αλλαγές? Η πυκνότητα της πόλης επίσης δημιουργούν προβλήματα όσον αφορά τις υψηλές θερμοκρασίες μαζί με την αύξηση της στάθμης της θάλασσας. Το συνέδριο αυτό είναι μια εξαιρετική πρωτοβουλία. Το ερώτημα είναι αν η Θεσσαλονίκη μπορεί να αποτελέσει το παράδειγμα για άλλες πόλεις του κόσμου ή για όλη την Ελλάδα. Για να το κάνουμε αυτό, και ας επανέλθω στην ερώτησή σου, θα πρέπει να υπάρχει ένα φιλόδοξο όραμα, αποφασιστικότητα και μία πεφωτισμένη, θα λέγαμε, η ηγεσία, η οποία θα έχει τη στήριξη σε πολιτικό, επιχειρηματικό και τοπικό επίπεδο από τους πολίτες της πόλης. Όλοι θα πρέπει να έχουν έναν κοινό στόχο. Αυτό που κάνουμε με τον Πάνο, με λίγα λόγια, στο Ανατόλια, είναι ουσιαστικά ένας μικρόμοκοσμος αυτής της κατάστασης και δείχνει τις ευκαιρίες που αναδύονται στη Θεσσαλονίκη. Είναι ένας χώρος ο οποίος για πολλά χρόνια είχε γεμίσει πάρκινγκ, αυτοκίνητα και λεωφορεία. Οπότε αποφασίσαμε το καλοκαίρι να φτιάξουμε πάρκινγκ στην περίμετρο του Ανατόλια, να απομακρύνουμε τα αυτοκίνητα και τα λεωφορεία. Βέβαια αυτό δεν άρεσε πολύ στο προσωπικό και σε κάποιους άλλους, αλλά ήταν απολύτως απαραίτητο. Διαφορετικά ο χώρος αυτός δεν μπορούσε να ξαναβρει τη ζωντάνια του. Τώρα, επίσης, έχουμε διπλασιάσει το χώρο στέγασης και την φύση και το φυσικό περιβάλλον, κάτι το οποίο αναφέρθηκε από όλους όσον αφορά τη σημασία των πράσινων χώρων. Και μια πολύ σημαντική ακόμη σύνδεση των πράσινων αυτών χώρων και της βιωσιμότητας είναι το γεγονός ότι το Κολέγιο Ανατόλια εκπαιδεύει, θα λέγαμε, τους πεφωτισμένους ηγέτες του μέλλοντος. Και αν μέσω αυτής της διαδικασίας μπορούν να βλέπουν γύρω τους φυσικό περιβάλλον, τη σημασία του πρασίνου, της βιωσιμότητας και πώς όλα αυτά μπορούν να συνυπάρχουν για να βελτιώσουν το χώρο όπου ζούμε και να δημιουργήσουν μια πιο βιώσιμη πόλη, αυτό είναι πάρα πολύ θετικό. Μπορώ να σας πω και για το Μάντσεστερ σε λίγα λεπτά αν θέλετε, ή να δώσετε το λόγο σε κάποιους άλλους ομιλητές. Ευχαριστώ πολύ για αυτή την πολύ, θα λέγαμε, θαραλέα ιδέα απομάκρυνσης των αυτοκινήτων από το δρόμο της παραλίας. Θα μ' άρεσε πολύ να το δω αυτό. Και στη Θεσσαλονίκη και στην Αθήνα, στο παλαιό Φάληρο που ζω. Γιατί και εκεί έχουμε πολλά αυτοκίνητα.
And now to Mr. Vlachos, President of Anatolia College. You have to find a way to convince people. For example, I spoke recently with a friend from Larissa who told me that they even take their car to go to a kiosk nearby to buy anything, whatever they need. How can we convince people that simply jump on their car to go wherever they want? How can we convince people that they should and let them understand that they should not bring all this voluminous waste and leave it on the sidewalk just out their homes? How can we achieve all this? To begin with, I would like to thank you for your invitation. I think this is a great conference that we're having here today. Your question is the 20 million question indeed. That is, no specific answer can be provided. However, if you want to change anything whatsoever, you need to have a program, a strategy, and planning. Education is of the essence in this respect, of course, because I do think that communities worldwide are not really proud of whatever they have done in the areas of inclusion, justice, etc. in recent years. Therefore, I think that a thing on which most emphasis should be placed on is education. That is, if you have young people starting to think in a different manner, because I have always said this, primary education is basically about showing students that we have specific roles and responsibilities in the community. And then secondary education is about letting people know that they should become engaged in any effort whatsoever to improve the community. So we try to um, make people believe in this. Change cannot come swiftly, possibly, but there is indeed an effort globally towards this goal, towards making people more aware. Of course, when talking about the future, there are several pillars on which one could be based to shape a better future. Education can be one of those pillars, but the community is not always aware of that. Mrs. Sarandi earlier talked about the universities that we have in this city and all those young students. But we don't have enough foreign students, and this is because we don't have enough openness at the level of our universities. And there are indeed some strategies that are now being implemented to um, help universities become more open and attract higher number of foreign students. And these could provide a different future for this city. For example, we have around 4,500 students. Around 1,000 of them are foreign students. To achieve this, we needed to work on a specific framework, create a specific framework. Thessaloniki, for example, is a vibrant city. This is already a very important thing. It is quite safe as opposed to other cities in the world. Therefore, you need to develop a specific framework to cover several issues. For example, the issue of visas, etc., to attract higher numbers of foreign students. Now, already since 2008, we have worked on this. We have attracted more than 10,000 people, 10,000 foreign students that have also contributed considerably to the economy of the city. Because education is not only about, of course, not about the economy. It is also about society and academia. So what I would like to see happening in this city in 5 years from now, I would like to see it becoming more extrovert, more open in terms of attracting foreign students. So, Mr. Andriopoulos, you have made considerable investments, of course, in recent years. But recently, I have been thinking about a specific issue, demographics, that is. And this is indeed, in my opinion, the most important problem that the country will soon be facing. So, to what extent do we end up making investments where we have in areas where we have more people living? This attracts even more people to those areas and cities. And this means that more people actually quit other areas. That creates new problems. For example, could there be some other type of investment outside the main hubs in Greece? what efforts could be made in this respect? What infrastructure could be developed in other areas outside the big cities? What should come first? Should the investment come first, or somebody else that should bring the investment and new people coming in? Well, of course, it takes two to tango, as we say. This situation will become more intense in the near future. No one can achieve anything if they have to act on their own. We have to tackle issues such as the trust relationship between the citizens and the state, between the businesses and the state. Demographic is, of course, an acute problem across several parts of our planet. We do face this problem here. I have spoken with an expert in this field only yesterday, and he told me that there is absolutely no solution for this problem. I spoke with Thodoris Georgiakopoulos yesterday. We discussed this issue together, and he told me that there is absolutely no solution to this problem, to the problem of demographics. So solutions can only be of a hybrid type. That is, besides migration policies, we need also to invent new solutions to increase populations, local populations, to avoid the desertification of certain areas, etc. Thessaloniki, in some manner, although it has gone through considerable hardship, is still doing this. I mean, there are currently, at least since 2009 to the present day, several developments have taken place in this area. For example, a considerable number of multinational companies have come here and have provided a stimulus for more investments from other companies, from developers, for example. And this trend could continue, that is, having new businesses bringing some of their operations here and new people settling in the city to work in those businesses. In order to have a sort of a more drastic change in this respect, things should happen like the ones that Julian mentioned. One should be optimist and organized enough in order to implement all those actions and changes. Only last night, and because I like walking through cities, I walked down Hagia Sophia's street and I saw things around me. The center of Thessaloniki could indeed replicate the example of Hagia Sophia Street, a street that has become a pedestrian street recently. So that model could be replicated across other locations within the urban fabric. That is, the Hagia Sophia model, a pedestrian street, needs to be replicated, needs to be multiplied. For example, one of the previous speakers mentioned the idea of mobility packages instead of cars providing to workers of big companies. But now the metro is opening and new bike paths are being created. So should there be some consensus that once a bike path is created, no future municipal authority will go and remove any back path, the results expected should be great. I visited Doha recently for the second time, and I was there at the opening of an exposition concerning Pakistan, and I found out that their capital was designed in 1964. Do you know who designed the capital of Pakistan back in 1964? Well, that was a Greek architect, Mr. Doxiadis, Mr. Konstantinos Doxiadis. So as you can understand, I stopped there and I saw that there was an entire section about what Doxiadis did, as well as a picture of him that was who provided the design for this new Pakistan capital. And we're now in Greece of 2025. We do have all the tools required. So in that expo, I read a text written by Doxiadis himself, in which he said that when you plan a new city, a master planner should take into consideration specific assumptions. A city should be first financially sustainable.
So this is, of course, a very realistic outlook. There need to be the funds available for a city to do what it needs to do, because we're talking about public funds, which means that the municipality must have the funding, whether national, European, local, in order to do what needs to be done. Secondly, any such city plan needs to be socially acceptable, which means that it has to be discussed broadly to an exhaustive level, and that a majority needs to have accepted it. Thirdly, it needs to be accepted on a political level. Number three, not number one. Four, it needs to be technically adequate, which means that you cannot use asphalt to build a pavement, but other types of material, for example, that are, let's say, reflect the heat. And finally, that it needs to be acceptable on an aesthetic level. Well, we have various principles in our mind, but what I read shed light again on the principles that I had in mind with regard to whatever you do, whether in a city, in a public sector, or any idea, in order for it to be able to gain broad acceptance. Well, the issue of the demographics, I always put forward on a Machiavellian level, and because I have 5 kids, I feel that I have done my part and I can ask everybody else about it. However, I always mention the demographics and the sustainable development because, unfortunately, now we see that most of Greek people live in 4% of the Greek surface area. Yes, the problem is that also that we are now down on our time. I feel that I've spoken too long. Could you please ask the timing of this panel to be extended? Yes, well, we will do so, of course. What about the parking problems? I saw, for example, a video with Volkswagen where they were using artificial intelligence in order to bring a customer his or her car from the 8th floor. Is it possible to do such things in cities like Thessaloniki and in other areas? Because parking in the city is extremely problematic. And Julian spoke about pedestrianizing the waterfront, too. Well, let me go back to the demographic issue and something that has to do with our work. Life expectancy is becoming higher, which means that people need elevators more and more. Right now in Thessaloniki and in Greece, there are new buildings being built and elevators are optional. Well, isn't it possible that somebody might be living in such a building that is disabled or has had an accident or is elderly? What are they going to do? Yes, and another issue about parking sites. For example, in Kalithea in Athens, they opted for shops rather than parking beneath buildings, and now they're doing exactly the reverse because the shops are closing down. And they're turning them into parking lots. So we have the law that says that disabled persons need to have access to all buildings, but even that is optional. So I envision a beautiful future for Thessaloniki with everyone having access to every space, whether they are disabled or whether they are elderly, so that they can enter all buildings, not only public, but also private. This is not such a futuristic thought, it is very practical, but it is impossible today. Actually, Greece has 360,000 elevators, which are completely outdated, many buildings without elevators, and there's a much bigger problem compared to the rest of Europe having to do with mobility. Of course, the technology is there and the interest and willingness, but is the government and the state are ready to impose accessibility to all buildings? It's a political decision, after all. With regard to parking, yes, we have our own systems in that case also, and it is much easier for us, for example, to use smart positioning of cars and such systems. But the best solution, of course, is the metro. Using our car in order to go downtown and park somewhere is a costly solution. We see them in New York and other cities, and we also have such a system in the YMCA building in Thessaloniki. But there are other solutions to get somewhere in 15 minutes by bicycle, for example, and not use our car.
Still with us. And, okay, so
Λοιπόν, ελπίζω να έχουμε ακόμα μαζί μας τον κύριο Λιψκόμ. Οι ιδέες που έχετε για μια πόλη χωρίς αυτοκινήτα ακούγεται εξαιρετική. Όμως, θα ήθελα να σας ρωτήσω πόσο καιρό θα χρειαζόταν για να γίνει κάτι τόσο ριζικό σε μια πόλη όπως η Θεσσαλονίκη. Για παράδειγμα, να αλλάξουμε δηλαδή τον τρόπο με τον οποίο χρησιμοποιούμε τα αυτοκίνητα. Στη Θεσσαλονίκη, ίσως τώρα, με τη χρήση του μετρό, δεν θα υπάρχει πια δικαιολογία. Θα μπορεί κάποιος να χρησιμοποιήσει το μετρό, ενώ πριν κάποια χρόνια δεν μπορούσε. Όμως, πόσος χρόνος θα χρειαζόταν για να γίνει μια τέτοια αλλαγή? Αρκεί, όπως είπε ο Δήμαρχος, να περάσουν 5 χρόνια? Είναι εφικτό? Ή μήπως λόγω των εκλογών δεν θα μπορούσαμε να έχουμε μια τόσο μακροχρόνια πρόβλεψη? Νομίζω τώρα πρέπει να ξεκινήσετε το σχεδιασμό και ήδη το έχουμε ξεκινήσει και στη δουλειά μας στο Μάντσεστερ. Χάρηκα που είδα στις διαφάνειες του Μιγγέλ ότι το Μάντσεστερ πλέον αναγνωρίζεται ως μία από τις 50 πόλεις του κόσμου που είναι έτοιμες για το μέλλον. Δουλεύω εκεί εδώ και 15 χρόνια και σε αυτή την περίοδο έχω ασχοληθεί με το Master Plan περίπου του 15% του κέντρου της πόλης. Η κινητικότητα του μέλλοντος είναι απαραίτητο κομμάτι αυτών των σχεδιασμών. Και το Μάντσεστερ είναι ένα ενδιαφέρον παράδειγμα για αυτή τη συνεδρία, διότι το Μάντσεστερ είναι η δεύτερη πόλη της Αγγλίας, η δεύτερη μεγαλύτερη πόλη, όπως και η Θεσσαλονίκη της Ελλάδος. Και κάποτε θεωρούνταν η καρδιά της βιομηχανικής επανάστασης, είχε μεγάλη δύναμη και επηρέαζε πολλές περιοχές του κόσμου, όμως έπεσε σε μεγάλη παρακμή την δεκαετία του 80 και του 90. Έκτοτε όμως βιώνει μια αναγέννηση εκπληκτική λόγω των ηγετών της και της περηφάνειας των πολιτών του Μάντσεστερ που θέλουν το καλύτερο για την πόλη τους. Κάτι το οποίο δημιουργεί τεράστια όθηση. Ο μετασχηματισμός λοιπόν της πόλης μετά την παρακμή του 1990 έχει οδηγήσει σε μια μελέτη περίπτωσης, θα λέγαμε, διεθνώς. Μια πόλη που εστιάζει σε ριζικό μετασχηματισμό, στην δημιουργία χώρων, τεράστιες επενδύσεις στο μέσα μαζικής μεταφοράς, με τραμ, με λεωφορεία, καινούρια δίκτυα και τη δυνατότητα τοπικής διαχείρισης όλων αυτών. Θα ήθελα να ζητήσω απλώς λίγο να επιταχύνετε. Ναι, όλα αυτά έχουν γίνει λοιπόν. Έχουν δεσμευτεί να κάνουν την πόλη με μηδενικό ανθρακικό αποτύπωμα 12 χρόνια πριν την υπόλοιπη Αγγλία, το 1938. Όταν κάποιος μιλά με τους ηθήνοντες του Μάντσεστερ, λένε αυτό θέλουμε εμείς για την πόλη. Εσείς, η αναπτυξιακή κοινότητα, πώς μπορείτε να μας βοηθήσετε να το πετύχουμε? Ενώ οι υπόλοιποι ρωτάνε εσείς τι θέλετε να κάνετε για την πόλη μας. Οπότε αυτή η διαφορετική νοοτροπία έχει βοηθήσει πάρα πολύ να φτάσει το Μάντσεστερ στο πεδίο που είναι τώρα. Ίσως θα μπορούσε να σταλεί και μια αντιπροσωπεία από το Δήμο Θεσσαλονίκη στο Μάντσεστερ για να δουν πώς ακριβώς το πέτυχαν αυτό. Εμείς μόλις ολοκληρώσαμε το πρώτο μεγάλο πάρκο και πράσινο χώρο στο κέντρο του Μάντσεστερ. Πρώτη φορά εδώ και έναν αιώνα έχει να γίνει κάτι τέτοιο. Με μεγάλη αποφασιστικότητα λοιπόν και με ενδιαφέρον από τους ηθήνοντες μπορούμε να τα πετύχουμε όλα αυτά. A quick question to you, Mr. Vlachos. Do you think that we need to persuade the people of Thessaloniki to use the metro? I hope not. I hope that they will look at it as a good mode of transport, because cars are definitely not the solution. I'm always optimistic because I think that's at the heart of every initiative. So I think I managed to use a bit more time than allocated. Thank you very much to all speakers and for sharing your thoughts with us. We move on to the next session.